This Smith Corona typewriter is almost 100 years old, and I think it's still got the original rubber feet on it. They've hardened in their old age and are basically useless at this point. Any of the tack or grip they once had is long gone, and the whole typewriter kind of slides back and to the left as I type. They also leave behind this weird black residue on any surface they touch. Usually I'll put it on this cutting mat just to keep the mess confined, and look how dirty this thing has gotten. Now there are some modern replacements available online, but I really don't want to spend that much, or wait for them to ship from Amsterdam for that matter, so I think I'll try to make my own. Now there are a few constraints to this fix. First, the new feet will have to be roughly the same height as the old ones. Back in the day, this was considered a portable typewriter, so naturally it came with a carrying case. It locks in place using this slot and tab in the back, and then by pressing into this latch in the front. The new feet will have to be the same height to preserve that function. I also want to make sure that whatever feet I build are easily replaceable in the future. I saw this one video where a guy, and I'll caveat this by saying clearly he knows what he's doing, he appears to be a professional typewriter repairman, but he's pinching these metal clips to squeeze onto the feet, and I just don't really want to do that to my typewriter. It feels like it'll make those feet harder to replace in the future, and I personally want to bend those clips as little as possible. Alright, let's get these old feet out and take a closer look. Oh, Jesus. Wow. Completely shattered. Yeah, so these things came off rather abruptly. I was really surprised by how brittle they'd become, and they really snapped off with hardly any pressure. Jeez. I want to make sure my new solution isn't so susceptible to rubber rot. So here's what I'm thinking. I bought these little screw-mounted rubber feet that are a bit shorter than the original ones. So I think I can make up that height difference by just making a little wooden block that goes here and then screwing that to it. They come with these little tiny wood screws that honestly won't work in this scenario because I'm going to need some way to attach the wooden block to this bracket. So I think rather than using these, I can just kind of through bolt it with a washer on the backside here and then clamp the whole assembly together. So let me just cut up some wood, grab some hardware, and let's see what we can make up. The thinnest wood I've got right now is some leftover 1/4-inch plywood from the closet studio build. It might be maybe 1/8 of an inch too thick, which I'm a little worried could make the new feet a little too tall and prevent the typewriter from locking into its case. But this is what I've got, so we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. Here I've just made 4 identical 7/8 by 7/8 inch blocks. Now, as is, they're not going to fit because of the angle the typewriter clips are at, so they'll need to be sanded down into shape. Okay, this one's looking good. I'm really happy with the way it fits. I'll just shape up the other 3 and then add the through hole for the screws. Now I've got what should be all the hardware I need, but these washers are not going to be big enough to clamp onto this bracket. So I'm going to need what's called a fender washer, which has a much larger outer diameter relative to the diameter of the through hole. Now I don't have any of those, but what I do have is 4 cents and a drill. And honestly, 4 cents is a lot less than what I would have paid if I'd bought these at a hardware store, so let's go for it. Alright, we've got our washers. Let's see how the whole assembly fits together. I'm kind of liking how the pennies look from the top. And of course with the plywood, my favorite material, just visible on the sides, I've added my own personal touch to this typewriter. Now before we get excited about this thing, let's just pop it back in the case and make sure it locks in place. Yes. And does it still slide back when I type? Doesn't look like it. Now, if you were looking closely earlier, you may have noticed that somebody engraved what I'm assuming is their name into the bottom of this thing. The same name shows up in another spot too, and I'm not sure who that is, but with these feet, it feels like I've left my mark on the history of this machine, just like they have. This thing is already extra special to me because my wife got it for me for my birthday a couple years ago, and while technically it became mine that day, now that I've dug into it a bit, fixed something, learned a bit about how it works, and put my own personal touch on it, now it really feels like it's become my own.